Hello, my name is Eddie V. Welcome to the Eddie V Show live. We are at Tuesday of the second week of Easter. Still going strong in the Easter season. Hope you guys are doing well. Everything's good over here. I'm close to finishing. I wanted to mention I'm close to finishing a book. Sorry, my eyes are a little itchy. A book by Michael O'Brien, Catholic writer. I think he's Canadian, called A Father's Tale, and I just recommend it. It's amazing. It's incredible. I've been told by multiple people to read it, and it's just knocking it out of the park. So I wanted to slip that in before I got into the main topic today. I'm not going to talk about it. It's not really like a book review show, and also I just don't want to ruin it. Just read it. He's a prolific Catholic writer, and this book is incredible. I'm not finished with it yet, almost, but I do recommend it. And I know a lot of Catholics like to read, so give that a try. Or maybe you already read it and you're just like, Eddie, you're behind the times. But I do recommend. But today I wanted to talk about something I was just recently meditating on, is safety, the concept of safety. And I think I've touched on this before. I get a lot of grief for this from everyone. I was going to say especially from lay people or married people, but from everyone, people with kids, clergy. I don't think I've talked to religious about it, so maybe maybe I can't put them under that category. But most people, they react pretty negatively to this. But I still think it's true, and I'm waiting for someone to convince me otherwise. But we worship safety in the West, in our Western culture. And I think our obsession with money is a symptom of this. And I think as long as we worship safety and comfort, the culture war will never change. The needle will never change in the culture war. Because safety means insurance. Insurance means self-preservation. It can never be an outpouring of yourself. I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself, but I'm just going to keep going. As long as your sole focus is to preserve yourself or your way of life to the detriment of so many things, how can you influence the culture? How can we influence the culture? How can we say, yes, I am not going to have these massive savings accounts. Instead, I want a beautiful skyline. I want a beautiful church. I want a beautiful city, right? These things are incompatible with each other. And money is directly a part of this, because we think with money is a tool that mankind, and it's not just in modern Western society, money is always seen as, I think, among other things, is a tool that I can use that in our minds is reliable to preserve us, preserve our way of life, and to also combat anything, push away anything that could potentially harm us. And you can see this with basic things like security. Money can buy literal security for your house. It can buy you a house further away from people in a better neighborhood. It can buy you better health insurance, better doctors. It can buy you better food. All these different things. You get on a flight, you can get a better flight, you can get a better hotel, you can, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not knocking making money. I think everyone, in this age, has to work, has to provide depending on their state in life. So I'm not rejecting that, but I am rejecting that it seems that we think we're detached, but the way I see it is it does not seem that Christians or Catholics are detached from money, from safety. And I think that is a huge problem. If you're just trying to make it through life, it's still going to be a huge problem. It's not just about the culture. And even if we're talking about the culture is just a reflection of how we are living, right? Incarnate creed, embodied belief. So we're walking around very, very tight, very nervous, very anxious about our futures, about our present preservation. And as long as we're stagnated in that, enclosed in on ourselves, enclosed in on our own mortality, our own potential of something outside coming in and disturbing, we can never, because I see the culture that was made in Christendom and even other cultures that, were not the European West, their ability to make things fulfilled and beautiful was their ability to expand outward from themselves, to not bring everything towards themselves, but to pour forth, to overflow. And as long as we're focused on safety, I don't think we can do that. I think a huge example of this is, and I'll just skim through a couple of them, but our modern way we do medical insurance, car insurance, all these insurances is mind-boggling. And I understand why we do it. It's because people are so isolated, they're so alone. Before, you might have had a community. Even the church still today, I'm assuming, is called, as the Gospels tell us, for at least for Christians and Catholics, we have to take care of our brothers. The widower who is a true widow, who cannot provide for herself, the church will take care of her, right? Assuming she's a true widow. And that is a whole body of people united together around the Eucharist, around the hierarchy, around the Bishop of Rome and the other bishops that look after each other, right? And without that, if we lose that, then comes the health insurance, then comes the retirement accounts, et cetera, et cetera. Lost the family, another community, the community, right? The unit, basic unit of society. And as liberal capitalism is destroying all these things, it's providing us with money, which can buy us paid community, which is like a caretaker, a hospice worker, right? As liberal capitalism starts to slowly destroy these communities, it's providing us with another way, which involves, wage slaving for the sake of buying that. I'm kind of getting off topic here. I just really think, and it's not a fully fleshed idea, that we really have to think about that. What is my life ordered to? What is my paycheck ordered to? Am I thinking about eternal things, or am I thinking about how I can successfully, almost like navigate to death without any hiccups? Is almost seems like we're doing. And then you can see maybe it's a result or it's a cause of how isolated we become. Because what do you have to do that? You have to isolate yourself to a certain degree, because as soon as you have dependence, your neighbor needs some help, your children need some help, your family needs some help. Those are liabilities on your safety. Those are ways to hurt you. And you can see that a little bit. I know it's a stretch here, but how many people know their neighbors? Because if you know your neighbor, that is someone who has a hold on you. They can ask you, hey, do you have a little sugar you can spare? Hey, could you help me with this? Hey, I couldn't pay rent this week. Are you able to help me out? And I'm not saying every single time you have to provide those things, but that's a potentiality that occurs once you invite someone in. But it's interesting because that's where life almost feels like it begins, is that unexpectedness, that adventure. That is what adventure is. It's an unexpected thing that comes in. You weren't prepared for it, but if you are trained in virtue, you'll do the right thing in that situation. You'll have a grand adventure. You might die. You might get severely injured, but that's the adventure of life. That's the outpouring of love. That really is life, right? Existence is existence and it's beautiful, but then there's that higher thing that is love. I'm kind of rambling here. I'm still thinking about things, but safety, and then its relation to money. I put a little quote, St. Basil, and he talks about with money, the temptation is always to hoard it. We want to take it to ourselves and we want to use it for ourselves. And St. Basil is literally saying, as you do that, you're lacking in love, because the love wants to pour forth. It wants to give for the benefit of the other, for the good of the other. So all these topics are really interesting. I've been really thinking about in terms of like how to live our lives, but also in terms of the culture. Because I love the thought of changing the culture one person at a time. But even for that individual person, even if it doesn't, it will affect the culture if they change in the positive way in any aspect of their life. But even for the individual person, it's like, how can we live so fully, just grasp every single present moment? I think we have to smash safety. So saying all that, I want to just, you know, reiterate. I think everyone has duties in life, duties according to their state. They need to fulfill those. That is the will of God, 100%. Not doing evil. People will, well, oh, it's my state in life. I have to provide for my family by, doing these terrible things. Don't do that. But we do have states in life, and I'm not against people making a lot of money. But it's like, what do you do with that money? I want good Catholic lawyers. I want good Catholic doctors, right? I want good Catholic military people, assuming it's a just military. Um, but it's not about, oh, you make a lot of money. It's if you make a lot of money, what are you doing with it? We need better rich people. We need rich people. They make a lot of money, but they do amazing things with that money. They build beautiful things. They support beautiful initiatives. They make the city more beautiful. They make it more vibrant. They make the community tighter with their money. Putting on a festival because you just have a lot of money and not spending it on yourself. Some people, they get rich and it's just more lavish stuff for themselves, more lavish, more lavish. A nicer, that's the most frustrating thing is like, what is a car? You just need it to get from point A to point B. Maybe you want a more reliable. Do you need like a crazy expensive car? And that seems what, you get a little money. It's like, well, I'm just going to get a nicer car. It's the same thing. It's just more expensive. It looks nicer. Maybe you got some nicer wheels, whatever people want with cars. We got to reject that. And I was going to talk about rich people today. Maybe I'll just talk about it now. Save it tomorrow. But we're going off the beaten path here. But we have this weird thing in our society, in America, I'll just say, where we worship rich people. It's very strange. I don't think it's Christian. I don't think it's Christian. Like Trump, is such a disappointment, in my opinion, just totally has betrayed everything he said he stood for. But it's like, really, we should have known that, because he's not saying all rich people are bad, but this man he is a wealthy person. And when you have a lot of wealth, you have to wonder, how does someone get that wealth? I'm sure there's people that have honestly become billionaires, maybe, possibly. But think of the things you have to do to get that wealthy. Right? Think of the things your parents had to do for you to get that wealthy. It's an interesting thought experiment. And then obviously he just lies all the time, which I remember defending him. Maybe I'll just say this for another show. I'll say it for another show. But this rich person worship is so strange. For a Christian and a Catholic, our Lord, he is born into poverty. He lives in poverty. He lives in anonymously for most of his life. And then he dies naked after being tortured on a cross. He dies with nothing. That is the Savior of the world, his emptying of himself. So a rich person, especially a rich person that uses all that wealth for themselves, it's like, we should not look up to that. That should not be our role model. Anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic. Safety. Safety. We need to re-explore safety, how we think about our lives, how we can direct everything towards not being safe and comfortable, but preaching the gospel and living a truly Christ-centered life. That will affect the culture. It will, if we can alter our minds, I'm thinking of ways how we can, obviously prayer, fasting, the sacraments, but because a lot of people do those things, or they say they do these things often, but it's like, how do we click that? And maybe it's not even something you can discuss. Maybe it's just suffering. And it's having those things first and then suffering greatly. I don't even know. There's a lot of exploration that can be done there. That's what I'm thinking about today. I'm going to stop it there before I get out of hand. But we're talking about safety. We're thinking about safety. What does that mean? Safety in relation to money, relation to insurance, those things. And then I just threw in there a little bit our rich person worship. We need to think about that too. What does that mean for us? Is that okay for a Christian? I don't think so. I'll end it there. I'm not going to get another tangent. So please subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you disagree about safety, about those other things. And I will see you on the next show. God bless you. God be with you. And good night.